Hello and welcome to Jump King Challenge, episode 27, 135 falls, coming at you the very next day after the last video, but maybe not the next day for you, probably the next week. But I am trying to grind through this, doing everything I can to make it to the end. And you can see I've continued there because I forgot to delete the save last time, but whatever. It's gone. So, what is there to talk about this time? Not much has changed, one could say. But I didn't cover everything that I could have talked about, so I still have ideas of what I want to speak about. So I will. So first, one thing that I have been working on that I'm excited to be doing a lot is I am taking up a project that I worked on. How is it? 4 years and 8 months ago, I did NaNoWriMo, and I wrote a novella. And I am now working on going through each chapter by chapter, and I'm going to finalize it. I have made it one of my goals for the last 2 years to do it near the beginning of the year, but both times I didn't make that meaningful progress. 2 years ago, I was just, I don't know, unable to. I'm not 100% sure what was holding me back 2 years ago. But in the last year, it was definitely like a work issue. And I don't have that enormous level of stress that I once had from work. Work is now a place of labor and some joy. And because of that, I now finally have the ability to, I hope, and I'm very committed to doing it, to finishing the novella. And I think it will be interesting to kind of go over the process of that. Sometimes you'll see people like Daniel Green is a good example, who kind of talks about their own process of publishing, but of course, someone like him, he has an organic following already that is unrelated to being like an author in the traditional sense, right? Normally an author doesn't have a existing audience of thousands of people. I have an audience of 15 people at best, in terms of YouTube and things like that. Of course, I have my own, smaller, or not smaller than 15, but bigger audiences among, real life people I know and so on, who would probably buy a book. But the truth is, I am going to give you updates on the process of, what is it actually like to go through each step. Once I've finished the novella edits, because I'm not going to be talking about the edits very much, unless I have a specific problem that I think is fun to discuss. I do have one that I'm going to mention, because I've been working on chapter 1. I've already edited the prologue fully and finalized it. But in chapter 1, there's kind of a funny error that it sort of showed up. But before I get to that, I want to say, I want to go through the process of, drafting like a call for agents, the 1-page explanation, the elevator pitch, basically, that you send to agents and you also send to publishers in some cases. And I want to show, how does that go? What is it like? Because it interests me. And I do believe that no matter what happens, I will be able to get it published. I have several reasons why I'm arrogant enough to believe that. The first of which is I have seen what has been published out there. I know that Pangs, that's the name of the novella, will be good enough to be published after it goes through, the process. I've had literary scholars who don't read fantasy read it already. A couple, in fact. One of them, they said they would rate it, and this was the rough draft form, that they thought it was very much and their criticism is very very real. If you're an academic, other academics' criticism of you is very very harsh oftentimes, because you all kind of grow up in an environment where that is normal, and you learn how to use that kind of criticism. It's a big part of growth as an academic, is being able to face the music, basically, when it comes to your writing. So, like, I know that they are very much willing to call me out, basically, is what I'm trying to say. But they liked it. And they said it was a little bit better than the book on Goodreads, which they used to mark their progress on it. And of course, that book, I will not reveal the book, but it's a book by a very famous author who's quite successful. So, if I'm able to reach, readerships who are quite different, that's both a good and a bad sign, probably. But I'm confident that the quality of writing will be good enough to be published. Certainly once it goes through an agent's site, a publisher site. But even before that, I think when I am finished editing it, I would be confident enough to self-publish. I don't want to self-publish, though. I want to find a publisher that will pay me for, the copies that are produced. I don't want to do the Kindle self-publishing route unless I have to. And it's not because I don't believe in that. I, in fact, do believe in it. But it's more because of, like, infrastructure and credibility, prestige, these kind of things. They matter to me in terms of my placement, I guess you could say. And my reasoning for having that belief or caring so much about it is because of the fact that I have published things before. I'm a published academic, and I want the quality to be something that is respected by my contemporaries in the field. So when I meet with authors, as I've done before, I have some friends who are authors even, that we can look at each other not as the academic, sorry if you can hear my dishwasher beeping, the academic versus the author, something like this, but as like equals or something like that. That's my hope. I opened the dishwasher. I don't want to overhype myself, but I've got 9 falls only so far. So I have some hope here. This is looking pretty good. This is the part that I just can't mess up. Okay, go down. Oh, that was close. We've got to wait again. That was way too early. As I said, I don't want to jinx myself. But yeah, I'm really excited to get back into creative writing in this way, in the way of like editing stuff and getting going. And one of the reasons I'm doing it is because I am academically writing a new article at the moment, and I'm also finishing up a chapter, or I probably basically finished it. I had author queries on it this past week. And so different kind of projects are moving forward in different ways, and all in the writerly zone. And, that aspect, I guess, or the feeling of being back at that stuff has been really nice and makes me happy. I really like being able to do those kind of things. I like writing. It's fun. And this is basically a concerted effort by me to be like, you need to get some stuff done. I like the idea of finishing things. I'm not a big finisher normally, right? I'm somebody who loves to start new projects, just like Mishmashed. And one thing I've always struggled with as a person is finishing all of these things. I tend to finish some things, so I'm not like a absolute, basket case who's unable to do anything, but I have eyes that are bigger than my stomach. I am hungry to try new things. I get excited and obsessed for short periods of time on different projects. It's a dangerous thing, but it's also just something that's part of who I am. And I am comfortable with that, but I'm also just trying to make an effort to do better. And so hopefully this will be coming along in a short enough time. I don't know how fast it will be. There are, I want to say 17 parts to do, or maybe it's 16. I think it's 16. 16 parts to do. And I've done the first part. And the first part is actually the shortest of all those parts. So I've done the least amount of that work. I've edited 2 out of, 90 pages. So we have quite a bit to go. But this is also, it's a text that I have worked on a lot. This is not a text that is in a rough state anymore. The things that I want to focus on when I'm editing it are these like last comments that I have. And I've actually combined feedback from a whole bunch of alpha readers, people who have put away their time to read, and not all of them have finished paying Xever, and all of those who did said they liked it, and all of those who finished the first 3 chapters read the whole thing, and that gives me hope. And the feedback I've had has been really helpful in transforming it, because in some cases this feedback came while I was writing it in the NaNoWriMo time, and it shifted kind of my approach. So the writing process has been informed partially by how people have given me feedback. And I'm really excited to show it to you guys. I mean, it's going to be a interesting piece of work, I think. It's to talk about how some of people have responded. One of my friends said it's there's really nothing actually similar to it. I can see my own like influences, like the things that I feel like did the most to make it. And I would look at Sanderson's hard magic systems, but with a different kind of approach in other regards. Guys, we have so much falls for this tower, and of course I have to redo all of the ice if I fall, but we're nearing the end of this challenge. I thought I would be spending 40 minutes to get here, and it only took 13. It's what I told Joey a long time ago, I think, and what he also had actually said to me, which is, if I had just played Jump King all at once, I would have finished it a long time ago. But doing it this way, you don't have the muscle memory immediately, and pacing yourself weakens you. But in the end, the challenge is not that I play it once a week. It was that you'd get a video once a week. And if that's not true, I did change the rules then. So I'm sorry if that is the case. But I'm really thrilled to have just engaged with it in this way. Now, doing this back-to-back days, because it's really giving me hope that I have been missing. I don't remember. Oh, I just remembered. So last time I hit the ceiling, right? Okay. 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 So I think I jump max to the right? Or is there like to the left? I mean, either way, this is learning, right? So I'm gonna max to the left and just see what's there. Okay, that was really wrong. That was really, really wrong. That doesn't count as a fall, but that does. Okay. It's kind of wild that you fall all the way down to the church, right? Anyways, in my like revisions, other than these kind of, you know, I have 170 comments, I think, that I've kept after reducing what I would consider the minor ones. And like, as I said, I'm an academic. I've dealt with, you know, having 50 comments that were substantial in something that's about 30 pages. So something that is about 90 pages and has, you know, this magnitude of comments is not impossible. It's not something that's going to be insurmountable or too difficult to do. It sounds like a lot, I know. And it is a lot. Some of the comments are going to be really tough. But I am not going to let perfect be the enemy of good. This novella will not be perfect. It has like issues, of course. Everything does. And I have thought about those things in the years since I wrote it. And I'm excited to write something around the same length or longer in the future, where I learn from some of my mistakes and so on that can't be overcome by editing. But I feel like I didn't fall. You know, I feel like in the end, this has been really cool. And I think this final step is long overdue. I should have been doing it in 2024. I don't know why I didn't, but life is life, right? We get distracted. I've learned that I make farting sounds when I'm on the ice level. It's like a very intrinsic part of this journey, I guess, is discovering new parts of yourself. Anyways, in the editing of Pinks, there's like two major things that I'm really focused on, I guess you could say. No. And one is the like voice. I have this error where sometimes I have the voice of some of the characters kind of in my head and I know how they talk. But the NPCs, that's not what they are. The minor characters who have maybe just one line, their voices are not distinct from my own voice. That was a really, really bad jump, but it barely worked out by some act of the divines. Yeah, so that's one thing, is the voice. And the second thing is just like continuity. You know, when I wrote it for NaNoWriMo, it's all very fresh and you're just writing right there and you make retcons as quickly as you can and you try to make sure they're correct. But sometimes you make mistakes. And that kind of brings me to like the funny chapter 1 revision, which is there's a character named Dilly. Not an important character by many means, but they're a character that the protagonist interacts with very early on. And why did I max jump? And in the very first version, they were he in one line, they were she in the next line, they were she in the next line, they were he. It kept changing, and Dilly is not a gender fluid character whose gender fluidity, if it was even known by Enna, which would be extremely unlikely, would not be the kind of thing that would be evident by the very small level of interactions that occur between Enna and Dilly. So like, if they were that kind of character, that wouldn't fit Werlam, the location, because this is a very how do we say it? They aren't very focused on like these kind of, I would say, higher level cultural identity aspects. For the people of Werlam that are in this particular location, they are very much a group of people performing as men predominantly. And if there are any, which there certainly are, but if there are any of the roaches who are queer or who are gender fluid, but you know, in a culture that doesn't have the words to express it, they're forced into a state of hiding that Enna would not be able to recognize, right? And Enna's own culture certainly has like fluidity and stuff like that, but she's a trained merchant who recognizes Werlam's culture, understands that what circumstance she is within. That said, it's not to say that queerness is invisible or something in Werlam. We have queer characters in the novella. Enna is one of them, the main character. But all this is to say, I made the funny mistake, I guess, of thinking I had fixed this issue. So I had edited this section before because I had feedback that was like, is Dilly a man, a woman? Is Dilly gender fluid? Is Dilly non-binary? Why is this not being communicated? Is it because it's fully normalized or something? And it's like, no, this is just actually an author error, and it would actually be at odds with the specific beginning setting of this conservative gang for them to have any kind of characters like this that would be known by one of their prisoners. So it's just seriously like an information gap issue, right? In addition to the fact that it's an author mistake. So I had to choose, is Dilly a man or a woman? According to Enna, and in some sense according to my own imagination, because I guess Dilly was existing in this kind of fluid state. And in any case, almost no matter what, Dilly was envisioned as a character who has like a queer sexuality, because Enna notes like their ineffectivity of her ability to win over Dilly romantically, seduction, as a means to get things that might assist her in escaping her prison at the start of the story. And so if Dilly is a man, Dilly is either not attracted to Enna specifically, is a queer character who is homosexual, asexual, and so on. But because of the magic system, because of the chopped in ways, I'm kind of leaning into that sort of zone. And I think it would be more, I guess, better for representation, but also better for just the sake of of telling you want to tell readers what they're walking into, unless your goal is to do something different. My goal with Pangs is not to educate you. It is to entertain you. And so people who are homophobic, transphobic, whatever, I want them to not read my novella, or I want them to read it and have to reconcile with their bigoted beliefs, to reckon with them. I guess not reconcile, but reckon with these beliefs and maybe learn from them in that sense, but not in a pedagogical way. I'm not trying to be an authority on this stuff or anything like that. But what I am trying to do is filter out people who don't want to engage with a story like this. Whether it is bigoted assholes, I don't want them in my community if I ever have a community of writers, an audience. But also it would be helpful to write your promises. When Sanderson has talked about writing prologues, and I've actually given this advice to a writer friend before, it's the first chapter, the prologue, it is supposed to promise you what the rest of the story will be like. So I want to capture, even if it's just very shortly, that there's some queerness to the story. It's not fully heteronormative or anything like that. I myself, not fully heterosexual or anything like that. I shouldn't even say not fully, but not heterosexual. By erasing myself. The classic. But that's not something that I make a huge part of my identity or my presentation of my identity. I'm much more excited about showing off my academic side, my artistic side, my cultural side, that I have more alignment with, I guess you could say. And that doesn't mean it's not important for me to signal to readerships so that they know that they're in a place where it's safe to be. And for those who aren't inclined, to show them the exit, show them the door, so they know when to walk out. So I am going to just hope that I manage to do that well in the new prologue and chapter 1, where I tried to resolve that issue, right? In terms of continuity, I'm also thinking of doing like a revision of the main antagonist. I went with kind of like a blank slate villain whose motivations are unclear. And I've had people who in the Elva reading said, hey, you should expand this. And I've had other people say, keep the world building how it is. And I had people say, maybe actually less. So there's really been a mixed response in terms of that. But I am thinking of just giving a little bit more clear motivation for the individual who is the antagonist, and maybe while remaining unnamed, because that's a choice of mine. I want to, ascribe them some aims so that it's more clear why are they doing what they're doing, maybe. But I have to think about it a bit more. On the one hand, I'm kind of not charmed by, but I understand well that a lot of evil, cruelty, badness that is done in the world is done by people who they want to do it, but also it is service to their lord, their cause, whatever we call it. Oh no, that was sloppy. guys. Don't look at that. It's fall 43. About a third of the way through. But I'm getting all of my time up here, which is... This is what I wanted to be doing last time. So it's actually great skill building. But I'm hoping I can just kind of brute force this last part. As I get better at doing this part over and over and over again. Maybe it will be... maybe I spoke too soon. That's actually beautiful. I didn't know that you could do a max jump from that side and it will just pop you right over. So much to learn in this game. A moment of silence for me. I want to focus here just once. Sorry, I had a moment of pause there. I needed to get water, and also I needed to think about what I was going to talk about today, because I didn't really think much about it, which is not so good, but it happens to the best of us, which could be me today if all this works out. Or maybe not. We'll see. But I kind of needed to think a little bit because I hadn't put much thought into topics this time. I was just like, I can just keep talking. I was talking so well last time without topics, but it was also such a long time ago that it was obviously, you know, there was so much of a gap between when I last did Jump King and this. I love that I'm smooth on that right there. That actually makes me so happy. But all of that, you know, time gap meant I just had so many things to just kind of blab about without even thinking. My mic's in the way again. But yeah, I'm now, having thought about it, I want to talk about my dilemma. I mean, I finished reading everything that's out of Dungeon Crawler Carl, and that means that I need something new to read. And if you know me personally, you know that I can read multiple books at once, and you also know that I tend to read pretty fast when I'm into something, but also just in general. Like if I force myself to, I can read quite fast. Which is a boon for my profession. It's a boon for my enjoyment sometimes. But having finished Dungeon Crawler Carl, I'm kind of facing that classic, you know, post-anime or post-book, post-TV show, post-movie, you know, sadness, where you're like, oh, there's a void, and now I need to fill that void with something. And so I am like, as a reader, I'm very much like a vibes-based reader, right? Like I decide to, I decide what to read basically based on, you know, how am I feeling. And so like I can read, I tend to read like the opening pages of different books, and like I'll have moments where like I read the beginning of Scholomance a long time ago from Naomi Novik, A Deadly Education, I think is what it's called. But I read the opening stuff and I was like, oh, that doesn't interest me even a little. And then I read it a different time and I was like, oh, I really want to read this. And, you know, then I read the whole book basically. So I have those, that's not a max jump, guys. I have those moments, I guess. There we go. Nothing to see here. But I also have like books that I quote unquote need to read. And like one of those books is like from, it was a gift from my former best friend, and it was just not jiving with me that much. But I'm very much like a person who typically reads a book to the end, and I also think there's some potential. Like I like the author's other works, and even if conceptually it doesn't like jive, I still want to finish it. I'm 2/3 through it, and I have like that book, but I also am reading quite a few other books at the same time that are all physical, but I haven't really been reading them actively in quite some time. And for me, that's not really an issue. I can kind of pick up books, even if it's been a pretty penny, a pretty big amount of time. And I forget the characters' names and things like this, but I'm not really great on those anyway. I'm much more like invested in the plot itself, if that makes sense. I won't forget like the narrative details. Even if I forget a character's name, I'll kind of be like, oh yeah, that's character who does this thing, who has this personality. That's kind of how my brain deals with this stuff. So like I can fortunately keep track of a lot of books that way, and I also can kind of get back into them after a long period of time without much issue. This does mean that I kind of feel sometimes a little critical of like the way that series books will often re-explain shit from the earlier books, because I'll be like, it's not that hard, I think we max jump right. Okay, it didn't do anything for us. I'm also really sad that I fell down. I'm sad I fell down. Falls down immediately several more times. But there's also like this part of me that makes me kind of wonder, like I used to always love reading physical books, and now I'm reading a mixture. But I tend to read the most pages, I guess you could say, per year from digital books. And I think that's been true for many years now. I don't know how many years, but it's been true for a while. So somehow I need to get up there. So I think it might be a max jump to the left. But my issue with that is it doesn't look possible. You know what I mean? But it must be. I must actually be supposed to be here and then max jump left. I'm going to do it from here and see if that works. That does work. Okay, guys, we're on a new screen. I think we go up, then right, then on the blue glass, then left, and on the right. We don't even maybe need to go on the left, but it looks like it's maybe safe. I guess the big part is you're learning how to do these new jumps every time, right? Just like always. Like it's the Jump King life, right? Like this is actually a pretty easy one as long as you bide your time. Okay. That was too little. It's okay, we can do it again. Way too much power. That is it's a big fall. It's a really big fall. What I wanted to say though about all this digital versus paper stuff is like I've been kind of thinking about like, well, why? Because I'm gonna spend a lot of time reading either way. So like, why would it matter which format it is? And like, of course, it's more easy to travel with digital, and I am not really someone who wants to travel with a bunch of stuff because I already carry a lot of stuff with me all the time, because I like to be prepared, and like bringing an additional book is just too much. It's not really logical for me to do that. I don't know why I'm trying to like show off by doing like a better jump there. Because I'm not good enough to show off in this game. But I think maybe one of the factors that's making me now prefer the digital, or has made me prefer the digital in terms of my everyday life. I don't know why I did it again. I'm crazy. I'm crazy, guys. I think it has to do with the way that when I read physically with physical book, I know how much is left, and I also know how much progress I've made. And that in itself creates problems or makes me like less likely to continue. I'll be like, oh, I've made some good progress today or something like this. Whereas something like the Kindle app especially is really good at this, and I actually really like this feature, which maybe other people don't like. I'm not sure, but it tells you how much time based on your reading speed you have left per chapter. It's like, oh, you have like 1 minute left in the chapter, or 5 minutes left in the chapter, whatever. But I really appreciate that feature, and it encourages me when I'm, maybe winding down at night or whatever. I see, oh, I have only 6 minutes to go, and then I can go to bed. And then, by the time I finish the 6 minutes, I've gotten a little bit more excited, and I've lost track of time. And then it's 3 minutes later, and I go, oh, I could read a little bit more. And I love that, because it kind of keeps me hooked. And with a physical book, you never know when the chapter will end. So if you have that feeling of like, oh, I want to know how much is left, how much time I have, you never have it at all unless you go look ahead. And if I do that, I'm like putting a bookmark in, which I do sometimes before I even read. I might be like, oh, I'm going to read for 30 minutes. So I'm going to go like, 35 pages forward or something. And mark whatever chapter is closest to that and read that much. But this is, of course, not like optimal for getting me to read even more. And that, I don't know, addictive quality, I guess, of the screen type of reading is good. Because in the end, that's how I want, reading as entertainment, but reading also as art to be, is like something that engages you and keeps you going and keeps you invested. So somehow the ebook format is actually like aiding my investment, even though I think people would say it does the opposite for maybe a lot of people. Oh well, I don't know. Maybe it's part of like the gamer brain rot or something. But because of that, I read Dungeon Carl only as digital. 72 Falls. But because it was only read as digital, I no longer have a digital book that I'm specifically reading, I guess you could say. Like, I've got a couple that I've read some pages in here and there, but they're not the focus. And so I kind of need to decide, like, do I now put a lot of effort into finishing the many paper books that I do have behind me is a shelf, and almost all of the books on this shelf are books I haven't read, because I want all the books I haven't read to be visible to encourage me to read them, if the fancy strikes me. But I also am just like, oh, I might just be in the mood for I don't know how I save that, for the digital book again, for sake of convenience, for the fact that I like to read in the bathtub a little bit, which is probably a bad habit, but you're not going to stop me. I'm not going to stop myself. But like that sort of thing, it weighs on me, because I'm like, what do I want to do next? And I have a lot of digital books available. I have Kindle Unlimited. I also own quite a bit. One of the perks of doing a lot of literary studies is you get access to a lot of books here and there. and you also get a nice tax discount in this country. So, all that to say, that was an overshoot, and I was feeling so confident there, guys. That was it was beautiful, right? Not as beautiful there. But one thing is, like, maybe I'll take a recommendation from a friend to read All the Skills, which is that was a max jump, which is wrong. A Yu-Gi-Oh! Inspired lit RPG, or Magic the Gathering inspired, maybe. It has rogue deck-like elements in it. And that sounds like a very cool concept. I mean, the lit RPG often does not manage to get me to like it, but I mean, Dungeon Crawler Carl did, so I shouldn't give up on the genre in terms of my enjoyment, outside of the theory that interests me about it. Wow. All this to say, I might start reading All the Skills, but I might look at other things. I might decide to really dive into Legends and Lattes. There's another kind of cozier book that I was recommended that I have access to as well. That might be a good pickup. That's currently at the top of my read era, but the name is escaping me. But yeah, I'm thinking I might also finally go after the last Murderbot books and finish her up, her being the series, because I like Martha Wells' writing, and I've been kind of delaying on it because I want to savor the flavor. But at the same time, you know, good things need to come to an end eventually, and you shouldn't only hibernate, right? If something is good that's waiting for you, you can put your hands on it and take it. So that's what I need to do, probably. Which should be exciting. So that's kind of one thing that's been on my mind is this, the affordances of form. You know, why am I reading these digital books? And, you know, I already almost seem like I've decided I'll be reading more digital books rather than finishing the physical ones, but I'm going to try and maybe brick out some time that's like physical book time, I guess. It just feels kind of almost silly to me, because obviously reading itself is should be pleasurable and is a goal and all of that, but there's also the real material weight of just, you know, a shelf of books behind you that you need to read. You know, we can't be that materialistic. What was that? I've been doing that a couple times in that zone. I'll like accidentally go a little bit to the left, and I don't understand it, to be perfectly real with y'all. Something else that's been on my mind is I have felt sometimes my attention waning sometimes in situations where it shouldn't be. And some of that maybe is because I've just been having a little bit more tiredness of late and erratic scheduling for whatever reason. It's just kind of, I was reading late into the night or things like this, or I lost track of time with Skyrim or Arc Raiders or you know, all that kind of stuff have been kind of factors there. But I also think it might have to do with, like, as strange as it sounds, like the passive watching of YouTube content. And like, I don't know, I can't tell you because I don't know what it does to your brain to like listen to a bunch of YouTube passively. But it's something I've definitely been doing a lot more in the last few months, maybe even year. Is just like, there's an enormous amount of content that I find enjoyable. And as a result, I'm engaging with it, right? But I'm not really engaging with it. It's sort of like, oh, it's on my other monitor, just doing its thing. That was not a full jump. That was really weird to me. Back down. But I kind of wonder, like, what are those effects that it might have on you to be ambiently listening? And I do think also I listen to things too loud. Every once in a while I'll notice that it's loud and I'll be like, what am I doing to my hearing? What am I doing to my brain? When I have things that are that loud, when life is not meant to always be in your ear loudly. That's not the human thing to do. And I think part of it is like that feeling of solitude, living alone stuff. A kind of feeling where you're like, oh, I want to fill my space with comfort and social blah, 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 and all that sort of stuff, which is very needy, unnecessary when it comes to like the level of that, because I have plenty of friends and social life and talking and things that happen. But of course, in your own domestic space, as someone who lives alone, doesn't have any pet or whatever, or person who's just kind of inhabiting the space, there's like less sound interaction and stuff like that, less tactile feedback and all that sort of stuff. And I wonder if these ambient YouTube videos and podcasts are trying to taking a small bit of that space. But I'm like, this is a theory, right? But I'm just kind of becoming more concerned about it. And I'm like, maybe it's affecting my attention span. Maybe it's affecting my hearing. It's something I need to think more about and also do real research on, right? One thing that is a very different note is I've been teaching short stories to one of my students who's very advanced in English studies. They're not a university student by any means yet, but they're almost one. And I've been tasked with teaching him about literary analysis because that's something I can obviously do. And I've been picking out different short stories, and it's been interesting because I pick out short stories without knowing that I've already read the short stories or like watched a short film on it or read an adaptation of it or something like this. This has happened already 3 times. So there's like a big interesting gap where like you forget the authors you've read or the titles of stories and that sort of thing, right? But something that's kind of popped out to me is like there are some real Marvel works out there. Like this week, I've assigned Jamaica Kincaid's Girl, which is a really beautiful in a sad way, imperative short story by Jamaica Kincaid. And it just shows the innovation that artists can have, right? And it made me think about like how, with AI, if we ask it, please write me a short story in the imperative that shows, the style of Jamaica Kincaid that shows, I don't know, what is it like to be a hockey player or something? It's certainly possible that it will do so, but it will never have at least never at the moment, have the brilliance, the genuine genius of the work, the muse in play that we see in Kincaid's work in this particular case. And I'm not like some kind of Kincaid stan. I've only read this by her, I think. I can't even tell you, what else have they written off the top of my head, which is sad, but this is the state of literary studies, right? The canon is insanely large, and nobody has a real great grasp of it these days, unless it's in a specific niche field, which I'm certainly not in the field of Jamaica Kincaid's writing by any means. My point is, it's been fun, and it's been fascinating to revisit these kind of stories, and it makes me think about like, just adding, even if it's in a small way, putting visibility on some of the best stuff I've come across is to me, valuable, even if it only is to an audience of 1. If it's an audience of 0, maybe not, haha. But an audience of 1, that's enough. Even if it's just that one student, right? But it also kind of makes me think like, well, should I talk about literary analysis here? You know, I don't think every challenge that I'll do on this channel will be oriented around this kind of multi-hour I can't believe I just did that, guys. Multi-hour talking back and forth between myself and myself. But it's also not impossible, right? So I don't know. Maybe I'll I did it again. So maybe I'll also think about looking at like analyzing or even just elevating stories that I like. I don't know how I will exactly do that or in what form. But I'm certainly feeling the love for art right now, which is maybe great because I'm going to be teaching about, you know, the value of art and artificial intelligence relationship to it next semester. So like I have something that's going to be engaging with this this terrain, this battlefield that we find ourselves in the humanities and in art in general. So I wonder too if there isn't a small part of myself that's kind of thinking like, oh, you know, the AI era is a bad one in many ways, but I can still write something now. I'm curious about whether I can max jump into that top part and it will just work. No, but also I didn't need to do that where I just moved. Sometimes I make these really bizarre mistakes in Jump King. That hurt. I know it's not the end of the world. I can get back there. But honestly, there's nothing more shameful than that. Just noodling yourself right off for no reason. I didn't need to fall that first time at all, right? That was the first time I've fallen on that, I think, in a long time. But it was a good recovery for me. Nope, nope. Too much. Back all the way down. Okay, not all the way down. What else is happening? I'm rewatching Game of Thrones. I think I might have mentioned that last time in anticipation of the A Night of the Seven Kingdoms show, which is out and which got one of the highest rated episodes of television ever, which is wonderful on IMDb. And it makes me feel this sense of real joy and hope. You know, people in the fantasy industry, you know, have a lot of lost hope when it comes to adaptations, but the Game of Thrones ones, they, and I mean, obviously it's not a Game of Thrones, it's Song of Iron and Ice, whatever, but the Westeros world has been so successfully adapted that it really gives me hope about really everything that's coming out in the future. And I'm just hoping that people like see it and they realize like, oh, it's showing us, we're seeing here that it's not that Game of Thrones was a one-trick pony or something like that. It's not the only fantasy series that could work. And, you know, they might get fixated and go, oh, it's something to do with the world and blah, blah, blah. And maybe it does. But I think it also has to do just with the investment in writing. You know, we can tell exactly when the writing fell off in Game of Thrones. Everybody knows it. And in House of the Dragon, the writing has been pretty workable. It's been nice. And of course, it's because they have source material to draw on. And also because they have people involved who are not on the way out. You know, people are bound to eventually get tired of writing for a show. And I think that was one of the main problems we saw with the end of Game of Thrones. And, you know, in rewatching it, I'm up to season 2 now. There's just so much beauty in the simplicity of lines, in the dual meanings of lines, in, you know, the arrogance of so many people in this story. These bigger than life characters who are also somehow very, very gritty and real. It inspires me. It makes me want to write epic fantasy, which I'm probably not the right person to do that in some ways. As you know from earlier, I was saying I was having voice issues in terms of writing. So epic fantasy is maybe not the place to try and resolve that. Okay. I can see her, guys. I can see her. I have 21 falls and I can see her. Guys, I did it. I fucking did it. I did it. I'm so happy. I'm so happy. Oh my god, I have a crown. I am now whisking off. Okay. Okay, she's an umbrella. Oh my god. I did it. I fucking won. I won. I won Jump King. The Jump King challenge is over. It's behind me. This, you know, I started by talking about how difficult it is to complete things for me. Creative projects, primarily. And in a way, this first challenge is a step in that. Like, it's something that's hard to finish. And it's over. And I get to watch the credits for a little bit more, but I finished. I found the babe at the end. Babraham Lincoln herself. thank you for the game, people who have made this game. You're very welcome. I like how it says I completed on attempt 122. I wonder if that means. I mean, I've obviously misrecorded at times and all this sort of stuff. But damn, we've done it. I hit the print screen button. I hope that actually worked. 114 falls. And I beat the game. That smoking hot babe at the top, she's worth it. So let's start over, everybody. I'm kidding. I'm definitely well. Sorry, Steam popped up. I'm glad that that's not visible. That would have been awkward. Okay, something's... the controller's having some issues here. There we go. I was going to say, okay, it's time for the New Babe Plus or the Ghost of the Babe, but it isn't because we're finished. Thank you so much for watching this journey. I'm delighted that it's over. More delighted than I thought possible. I switched the scenes around so I could see you. Thank you for watching. And the next challenge will come out, whatever it will be. I will unveil it in, I guess, the week after this. When you've seen this, the very next week it will come out. Wow. This is I feel so good about this. It's a fucking achievement.